The light in the studio hasn't changed. Same spotlights aimed at the audience. Same cameras. Same practiced movements. Same signals in the earpiece. But the air, it's different. Dry, muted, as if someone wrung the oxygen out of it. The audience claps preemptively, the sound dense but brief. They know who's about to walk out. This isn't the star of the week. This is concrete. Sylvester Stallone steps onto the stage without fanfare. Just steps out. His stride is heavy, confident, like a man who doesn't need reminding of who he is. No bow, no theatrics. Just a glance, a brief gesture toward the audience, and a handshake with Kimmel. Short, precise, like a punch. He sits, taking his time, moves like it's not his first time in the chair, but as if it still doesn't quite belong to him. Kimmel smiles, but not broadly. He senses the weight beside him. He starts, as always, with a light opener, says it's great to see a legend. The audience reacts. Stallone just nods. No gratitude, no flirtation. Just, thanks. His voice isn't sound, it's gravel. Low, slightly guttural. He's not performing, he's talking. On his terms. Kimmel dives into the new film. Talks about the plot, son, aging, mistakes. Adds that audiences are surprised. No fights, no guns, just dialogue. Stallone looks calm. Says war isn't always outside. Sometimes it's in the family. Sometimes it's inside. And from there, you don't come back with a medal. The audience freezes. No applause. People listen. The camera zooms in. Kimmel smiles a bit wider. He shifts to Rocky. Asks if Stallone can imagine that character in today's world, with its fragility, its new sensitivity. The question is posed softly, but there's a barb. A hint that Rocky today would be a problem, not a hero. Stallone pauses, then says, he'd survive. Another pause. Then, quietly, firmly, because it's not the one who wins who doesn't give up. It's the one who comes back, even when no one needs him. Kimmel nods, as if he didn't hear. He pivots to Rambo, says it's an image of strength that sparks debate today, that gun-toting heroes no longer inspire, they scare. Adds, maybe it's time for different symbols? Stallone looks straight ahead. His face is stone. He says, Rambo isn't about guns. It's about a man who was abandoned, about those who were forgotten. I didn't make an action movie. I made loneliness. The room falls into thick silence. People don't know how to react. The camera lingers on him. He doesn't blink. Kimmel moves to a lighter topic. Says we've all grown up, and even heroes have to change. Jokes. Maybe Rocky's running a podcast now, talking about feelings? The audience laughs. Stallone doesn't. He says, if a hero can't be silent, he's not a hero. He's a blogger. There's no aggression in his voice, just steel. Kimmel swallows. He switches gears, asks about a scene where Stallone's character tells his son, I wasn't a good father, but I was an honest man. Says it might be the film's best scene. That maybe it's the message, not to be perfect, but to be real. Stallone nods, says, being honest is hard, because then you don't hide. Not behind jokes, not behind ratings. A pause. He looks at the host. The camera catches it. Not hostile. Direct. The audience stirs. Someone claps. Someone laughs quietly, as if to ease the tension. But it doesn't fade. Kimmel tries to lighten the mood. Says, I think you're scaring our sponsors right now. The audience laughs. Stallone doesn't. He replies, if the truth scares people, they've been living in fiction too long. Someone in the audience stands, not leaving, just standing. The camera doesn't catch them, but the studio feels the movement. Kimmel smiles mechanically. He tries to regain control, says it's a time when everyone's talking, that listening to each other matters, that everyone deserves a voice. Stallone nods, says, "Agreed. But first, you have to handle it when that voice isn't yours." The cameras pull back slowly. The lights flicker slightly. The director in the earpiece. "One more minute. Transition to commercial." Assistants whisper. Security edges closer to the stage than usual. Kimmel takes a beat. Says after the break, they'll talk about Stallone teaching his daughter to fight. A joke. Weak. It flops. The audience murmurs but doesn't laugh. People exchange glances. Someone's filming. Stallone doesn't move. He just looks. The studio is all attention. Even the equipment is silent. Just the light. Just the eyes. Just the stage. And a man who isn't playing. At that moment, the producer signals, "Pause." The cameras slowly dim. The audience doesn't clap. The lights dim. But the silence in the room isn't the end. It's just the beginning. The lights return after the commercial break, but the studio doesn't come alive. Everything said before the break lingers in the air, like smoke no one dares to clear. Kimmel reappears with his usual smile, but it crumbles as soon as he sits across from Stallone. Stallone hasn't moved. Still sitting, back straight, hands on his knees, eyes on the audience, as if what he started isn't finished. Kimmel tries to pivot to a lighter topic. Talks about Stallone's daughter, how she learned to box, mentions a viral video. Jokes that she's probably tougher than half of Hollywood's actors. Laughter ripples, but it's weak. The camera pans the rows. People smile, but don't release the tension. Stallone answers simply, "I didn't teach her to fight. I taught her to stand." A pause. He adds, "Today, everyone knows how to fight. Standing, only a few can do that." The camera zooms in again. Kimmel looks down. The cards in his hand no longer give him confidence. He says many in Hollywood are grateful to Stallone for inspiration, that his films raised a generation, that millions found something vital in his heroes. But maybe now it's time to give new generations new images. Softer, more flexible, more real. Stallone slowly turns his head to him and says, "Realness isn't in softness, it's in the cost." He says his heroes weren't perfect, they were battered. Says a hero isn't the one everyone loves, it's the one who gets up when no one's watching. The audience freezes. Someone in the third row nods. A few clap briefly. The rest, silence. The studio feels cramped again. Kimmel takes a breath. He circles back to old Hollywood. Says the industry's changed. That the brutal male archetype isn't trending anymore. That now's the time for other voices, other tones, other forms of courage. Stallone looks at the audience, not at Kimmel. Says, "I'm not against new voices, but why's everyone afraid we won't shut up?" Says the world can change, but a person doesn't have to become a shadow just because the trend's now for brightness. Says, "I'm not against light. I've just seen too much darkness." A pause. The director signals. Producer in the earpiece. "We're rolling. Don't interfere." Kimmel adjusts his jacket, takes a sip of water. His voice turns friendly again. Says images of strength have always been contentious. That kids watching Rambo today might misinterpret it. Adds, "What if someone sees not loneliness but aggression?" Stallone nods. Says, "And if they see strength, what then? We ban that too." Says a movie isn't a textbook, it's a mirror. And if someone sees something scary in the mirror, the problem's not the film. The audience stirs. More clapping. Louder now. Shouts from the crowd. "Speak!" "You're right!" "Rambo forever!" Security edges closer to the stage. The camera pans the audience. An assistant signals for a close-up of Stallone. Kimmel stops joking. Says he feels the conversation slipping away. Says the show's always been about dialogue, not manifestos. Asks for respect for the structure. Asks to keep things within bounds. Says, "This isn't an interrogation. It's not an arena. It's a talk show." Stallone turns to him. Slowly, his voice lower than before. Says, "You want dialogue? Then listen, don't edit." Says he's tired of interviews where questions are asked to get the right answer. Says if he's given a mic, he'll speak. Not what they want. What is? The audience roars. Cameras keep rolling. Security closes in. One of them touches his earpiece. Kimmel glances toward the director's booth. His face sharpens. He says, "You're a guest. This is my platform." His voice is taut, not shouting, but a clear demand. Stallone stands, abruptly. No pause. Cameras capture him in full frame. His silhouette fills the shot. He doesn't move toward Kimmel. He just stands, hands down, shoulders square. He says, "I'm not a guest. I'm a man who showed up when everyone else was silent." Says if this room allows laughter, sales, profits, then it allows speech. The audience erupts. Someone shouts, "Respect." Others, "Let the show finish." A few stand. Phones rise above heads. The sound shifts, more a hum than applause. Security tenses. Producers argue in their earpieces. Kimmel stays seated, looks at Stallone. The pause stretches. He says, "You want the airtime? It's yours. But don't say later you didn't know what you stepped into." Stallone steps forward, not toward Kimmel, toward the audience. The camera follows. He says, "I've lived too long to fear a microphone now." A pause. Then, "If someone thinks my words are a threat, they weren't listening. They were just waiting for their turn to speak." The lights flicker again. Producers signal, "Cut, pull him, emergency insert." The director yells, "To commercial, now." But the broadcast is already ablaze, because the stage no longer belongs to the show, and the next moment will be the point of no return. The studio lights snap back on, but the audience doesn't react. No applause, no relief, just a low hum in the room, muted tension, and a sense that time's moving wrong, as if the broadcast isn't resuming, but sinking. The camera slowly zooms in on Kimmel's face. He sits upright, but his eyes lack certainty. Stallone beside him, same unmoving silhouette as before the break. He hasn't left. He hasn't finished. Kimmel breaks the silence first. His voice is cautious, says he respects the strength, respects the legend, but doesn't understand what's happening now. Says he came to host a conversation, not lose control. Asks if Sylvester wants this to be a dialogue or just an exit. Stallone doesn't answer right away. He looks straight ahead, not at the host, not at the camera, into the air, and only after a few seconds says, "I came because everything else is fake, and here, it's uncomfortable, but real." He doesn't raise his voice. No gestures. His voice sounds like he's saying it to himself, but the audience hears. Kimmel holds his breath, glances at the producers. In his earpiece, a constant stream. "Keep it going. Don't cut. Camera on sly." Kimmel presses on. Firmer now. Says he respects honesty, but asks Stallone to remember this is a show, a program, a format. That there are other guests, other schedules, other expectations. Says he has to think of the whole team. And if a guest refuses to follow the rules, it's no longer a broadcast. It's a monologue. Stallone looks at him, his face unchanged. He leans forward, says, "My whole life was by someone else's rules. Script, frame, runtime. Only when it gets tight do you realize you can't live without air." He leans back. The camera pulls to a wide shot. The audience, a tense mass. People exchange glances. Someone holds a phone on their lap, filming discreetly. Others shift their gaze between the two, like watching a tennis match where words are the ball. Kimmel picks up his cards, scans them silently, puts them down, says they had a plan, talk about the film, family, old Hollywood. Not this. He's not accusing. He's searching for an exit. Suggests returning to the shoot, scenes with the daughter, what it's like being a father on screen and in life. He offers it as a way back, to light, to laughter, to the usual rhythm. Stallone nods and says, "Being a father isn't a scene. It's when you're silent, and she still watches, and learns. Even if you're all cracks, she still remembers the shape." He pauses. A rustle in the audience. Someone signals the producer, "Cut or keep." In the control room, silence. The director gives no command. Everyone waits. Kimmel stops smiling, says it's a heavy moment, that maybe they shouldn't have started light, says he didn't know Stallone carried such a burden, that he expected a guest, not a wait, asks him to speak simpler, shorter, so the broadcast doesn't become a confession no one asked for. Stallone looks aside, not at Kimmel, into the dark of the audience, says, "I didn't call anyone, I just came, while there are still doors that open." He falls silent again. The audience seems to contract. Some clap, others whisper quietly. In the front rows, a few look visibly tense. Security edges closer. Cameras catch their movement but don't focus. Kimmel steps forward, sits closer. Voice lower. "Sly, you sound like you're speaking for the last time. That's scary. You came to a studio, not a courtroom, not a confessional. This is a conversation." He looks into his eyes. "I'm calling you back, to the broadcast, not whatever this is now." Stallone shakes his head, says, "The broadcast is what's heard. But people forgot how silence sounds. I came, not to win, to say, everything, no safety net." Kimmel lowers his eyes. He doesn't know what to say. And at that moment, a clap from the audience. One person stands and shouts, "Let him finish!" Someone turns, annoyed. Someone raises a phone. The hum in the room grows. Security steps toward the stage. One guard looks at the producer. The producer signals palm down, "Don't touch." Kimmel raises his hand, addresses the audience. "Please, quiet. Everything's under control." He turns to Stallone. "You've said it. Everyone heard. Let us finish, professionally." Stallone doesn't answer for a long time, then says, "Professionally is when you do what you must, even if it doesn't fit the format." He looks straight into the camera, not theatrically, just calmly, as if speaking to one person behind the screen, not millions. "If this is the last time I speak out loud, let it be my voice, not the edit." Kimmel doesn't try anymore. He leans back in his chair, tells the producers, "Give him a minute. Let him speak. That's it." They nod. An assistant signals, "Rolling." The camera holds. The studio falls silent. Stallone doesn't speak loudly, just evenly, clearly. No pomp. "I didn't break. I got quieter, because when you hold it all inside for so long, words run out, only pauses remain, and if someone hears them, then not all is lost." He stops. The studio, silent again. The camera pulls back slowly. The lights stay the same. People don't move. No one claps. Everyone just watches. And only in the control room does the command sound. End segment. Transition. But don't cut. Keep it as is. The stage stays put. But the show has already broken its frame. When Stallone stood, no one moved. The sound in the studio seemed to vanish. No footsteps, no breathing, just light exposing too many faces. He didn't look at the camera or Kimmel. His eyes were lowered, his body composed. He didn't look like a man leaving. He looked like a man who'd done all he had to. Security didn't react immediately. One guy in black took a step but got a gesture from the director. "Don't touch." The cameras kept rolling. The feed ran without credits, without music, without movement. Kimmel didn't look at Stallone. His gaze was to the side, just below stage level. He sat, not touching the desk, as if afraid to make an extra move. Stallone walked past the monitor, around the chair where the show began. His step was unhurried, but not heavy. Precise. The audience didn't clap, didn't whisper. Only one person in the third row covered their face with their hands. The camera caught it for a second, then switched back. Producers backstage scrambled. One tried to step onto the set, another held him by the sleeve. The lighting tech in the corner looked down. The sound engineer stood, holding a tablet with the mixer, but touched no controls. What was happening couldn't be adjusted. Stallone stopped at the steps. He didn't turn back, just straightened, like at a starting line, but didn't move. 1 second, 2, 3. He was waiting. No one knew for what. Kimmel stood slowly, without words. The camera didn't cut, just one wide shot. He stood straight, not approaching. One hand's fingers gripped the other's wrist. He looked at the floor, then raised his eyes. Not at Stallone, at the audience. For a second, then back down. "You took the moment," he said, his voice low, barely audible. Stallone turned his head slightly. "Just enough." "Just wanted it not to pass by," he replied. The words sounded like part of the silence. They didn't look at each other. Between them, the stage, empty, burned by what happened in the last 40 minutes. Kimmel stepped forward. 1 step, stopped. He said, "I don't know what to do with this, and I don't think anyone does." Stallone exhaled, almost imperceptibly. But the mics caught everything. He answered, "It's not for doing. It just had to happen." Kimmel said nothing. He sat back down. The camera stayed on him, his face expressionless. He ran a hand across his cheek, as if wiping something off. Not emotion, pressure. Stallone walked on, past the last set pieces, where guests usually sign autographs, where coffee, cards, assistants wait. Everything untouched. He reached the final line of light, where the stage meets the tech zone, where the broadcast physically ends. An assistant stepped forward, as if to say something, but froze. In his eyes, not fear, restraint. Stallone passed by, not looking back. The silence followed him, like a man stepping out of frame but not off the stage. When he was gone, the audience stayed seated. A few began to move. One viewer, a woman in gray, reached for her bag, then stopped. Someone sighed. Someone whispered, "Did he really leave?" No answer. The cameras kept rolling. The broadcast continued, but no one was hosting. Kimmel sat alone now. He didn't move, then raised his eyes, straight into the lens. No pose, no smile. He said, "We had a show, and then it became something else." He fell silent. No intro, no closing line. Just a pause. And silence again. The assistants at the controls exchanged glances. The director gave no signal. Someone clenched a fist. Someone lowered their head. No one wanted to be the one to hit stop. Kimmel kept sitting. He didn't close the show. Didn't thank anyone. Didn't say, "See you next time." He just stayed in place. And at some point, the cameras began to shut off. Not all at once. One by one. No graphics, no credits. As if the equipment itself was exhausted. The broadcast cut off. And online, it had already begun. A 3-minute clip filmed from the second row racked up views. Below it, hundreds of comments. Some wrote, "This isn't an interview, it's a confession." Others, "Stallone brought the voice back." Some shouted the show was ruined. Others, that it was the best thing to happen to it in years. Sides diverged. People argued over meaning, over boundaries, over whether Kimmel was right to try to interrupt, or Stallone, for not letting it slide. The next day, the episode didn't appear in the show's archive. It wasn't uploaded to the official channel. Fragments spread only through audience recordings. But that was enough. They circulated like evidence. Unedited. No backing track. No polish. That evening, Kimmel went on air with a short statement, stood before the camera, spoke for 20 seconds, said, "Sometimes you're not ready for what will be said, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't have been." Then paused and simply walked off the stage. If you've read this far, write in the comments whose side you're on, Jimmy Kimmel, the host who tried to keep the format, or Sylvester Stallone, the guest who stepped beyond it. What matters more to you, rules or presence? Who said what someone had to say long ago?